Welcome to our 5 on 5. Please be joined by Republican Secretary of State candidate Dennis Richardson. Dennis, good to see you again. How are you?
Good to be here.
It's good to have you back in Southern Oregon. I know how much time you've obviously had to spend up in the Portland area getting out the vote for Republicans in the primary. Congratulations on the win.
Well, thank you. Nearly half the Republicans in the state are in the 3 counties surrounding Portland. And so I've had to spend a lot of time up there, and I'll continue to do that because for me to win, we need to have great turnout statewide, but I also need to have a certain percentage of the Multnomah County voters in Clackamas and Washington counties, too.
So you beat handily Lane County Commissioner Sid Lycan. To what do you attribute your success?
I think the fact that I've served in the legislature for 12 years, that I was co-chair of Ways and Means, that I had the newsletter with nearly 500,000 subscribers, so that people got to know me over the years. That made a big difference. And the fact that with my experience, I was a lawyer for 30 years, and what I've said is, as Secretary of State, I'll just represent one client, and that's the people of the state of Oregon. The goal, I'm no longer working in my law practice, I'm no longer holding state office. My only focus will be to win this election and to become the Secretary of State. I think that made a difference to the people.
And just so people have a little background, break down exactly what the Secretary of State's office does or what you would do in that role.
The Secretary of State's office does not make policy. That's done by the legislature and the governor. What it does is it administers the law. It's over the corporations division, for instance. It should be a light. It should be rolling out the welcome mat to businesses that might want to come to Oregon, that will live with our principles and our laws and our understanding and love of the environment and so forth, but creates jobs for Oregon workers. And in addition to that, the Secretary of State's office is over the elections, local and state elections, and they're to ensure that the elections are open and honest and transparent. In addition to that, the Secretary of State is the chief auditor of the state, and essentially should work like a GAO, a government accountability office for the state. It should be handled in a nonpartisan way to ensure that the people's money is well spent. Now, that hasn't been happening for decades. There's been no serious exposure of the waste that's taken place. Consider Cover Oregon. It was over $300 million wasted on a website project. That's money that could have been used for our foster care system. And yet every month, we read about more instances of abuse of children and sexual abuse and physical, even starvation. There needs to be greater emphasis on using our money wisely, and there's been a waste of all that money with no accountability, no full audits, and no lessons learned for the next time. The same thing happened with the bridge project up in Portland. Almost $200 million wasted. No audit, no accountability, no lessons learned. Now we learn that almost $1 billion has been spent in tax credits. That's money that doesn't come to the coffers of the state. It's giving it away for those that qualify for these tax credits. There's been no benefit to the environment with it. There's been no benefit to the state, but a huge loss that could have been used for our education and our foster care system, for the seniors, for our very important programs. That kind of waste we cannot continue to tolerate, but the Secretary of State's office has not been willing to expose it and to ensure that it doesn't happen again. So those are the 3 main things. There's a few other things that are done, but those are the 3 main positions or responsibilities for the Secretary of State's office.
All right, very good. We're going to take a quick break. Have much more in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Republican Secretary of State candidate Dennis Richardson. Dennis, you talked a lot about the job of Secretary of State. The Secretary of State also has a role in timber. Does he not? Or
Absolutely.
She not?
The Secretary of State is one of the 3 members in the land board. So you have the governor, the treasurer, and the Secretary of State, and they're responsible for hundreds of thousands of acres that are part of Oregon's forests. And there needs to be greater emphasis on utilizing that position in a very positive way. Right now, we spend money to manage those forests, and it's supposed to be generating revenue for our school systems. And with proper management, we would be able to provide jobs for rural Oregon, make sure that we have thinning and other good practices that help manage the forest in a proper way, and we won't watch tons of carbon go up in smoke and killing thousands of wildlife when there's these catastrophic fires, which often result because of poor management of our forests.
No Republican has won statewide office in Oregon since 2002 when Gordon Smith was reelected. Do you consider yourself the underdog in this race?
Absolutely. It's always the Republican is going to be an underdog in Oregon because there are so many Democrats that are registered to vote, and so many people vote party line. But I believe it's going to be different this time because I'm not going to be running for policy. My conservative attitudes and philosophies are not an issue here. It's about which candidate is going to be best prepared and most able to run the Secretary of State's office in a constitutional way that provides good leadership without focusing on party or partisan positions at all. I mean, I'm not seeking endorsements from social agencies or social groups where my opponent is actually seeking after the far left social endorsements because, in fact, when he announced he was going to run for for Secretary of State, he said that as Secretary of State, I'll promote the progressive issues of climate change. Well, climate change is a very important issue, but it has nothing to do with the Secretary of State's office. And so I'll be able to cross the line and get party members from all parties to vote for me this time because they've seen what I stand for. They know that I have a good ability to lead and administer, and I'll do it in a fair and open way.
Good to see you. Congratulations again on your primary win.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Stay with us. We'll be right back.